The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Shady Rays is having their best deal of the year. Go to shadyrays.com and use promo code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. We're also brought to you by the SGPN's Draft Week. All week long, SGPN has you covered with draft props, mock drafts, and our live NFL watch party. So make sure to smash that subscribe button at youtube.com/sportsgamblingpodcast. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Tuesday, April 25th, currently 11:04 on the East Coast. Here to recap the NBA playoffs action from the Monday night schedule, and we'll get into the three-game schedule here tonight in the NBA playoffs. But joining me here to help me break it all down, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the NFL Gambling Podcast, the Tennis Gambling Podcast, and of course here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, it's Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, nothing much. I feel like it's going to be pretty difficult to find the games that top what happened yesterday, but you never know. We'll see what happens for the Tuesday card. Couple really good games. Really no way around it. You ended up having an all-time performance, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a second. Yep. And then you had the Lakers-Grizzlies game, which was, the truth is, a really ugly game. And I thought the officiating was kind of atrocious down the stretch. But still, the game was competitive, game was close, and LeBron took over in the end. We'll talk about that game too, I'm sure, because once again, there weren't really any games we can choose to ignore, because I thought every game had some type of content worth talking about. But the Lakers are up 3-1, and the Heat are up 3-1. So, yeah, definitely interesting, definitely fun, but I feel like I'm going to save the rest of the actual analysis for our conversation. By the way, before I forget, everybody can get off my back because Capella went under 10.5 points, so everyone can leave me alone. I just want to get that out there.
Hey, you need to thank Quinn Snyder for that. I don't think he played that entire fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm talking about game. I wasn't talking about game
4.
I wasn't talking about game 4. I was talking about game 3.
Game 3. Okay. And also joining us here, you guys know him as the newest voice on the NBA Gambling Podcast. It's Delonte Smith. Playoff Lante, what's going on, my man? How you doing, bro?
Hey, man, another day, another playoff series. Well, unfortunately, we probably won't get the drama and theater that we got last night. But, yeah, man, looking forward to keeping it going and getting some of these series over with so we can get into the actual real games in the semis. So, yeah, looking forward to that. And looking forward to talking about the card with you guys today.
Yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned it, 2 of probably the best games we've had so far in the NBA playoffs. One for sure between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat last night. Miami gets the outright victory last night over the number 1 seed, the Milwaukee Bucks, 119-114 in one of the most epic playoff performances we can say from Jimmy Butler last night. 56 points last night. He finished up with 9 rebounds as well. It looked like Bucks early on, at least in the first half and the first quarter, where they looked like, I mean, they weren't in cruise control, but it looked like they were going to control the game from that tip. But Jimmy Butler, I think, had at least I know he had a minimum of 20 in that first quarter for the Miami Heat. But it was a tale of 2 halves, and I think we've talked a lot about that. For these NBA playoffs so far, Milwaukee was up 57-50 in that first half, and then Miami just turned it up and just took over, especially, like I said, led by Jimmy Butler. They outscored the Milwaukee Bucks in the second half 69-57 to get a 5-point victory. They now take a commanding 3-1 lead. Did see the return of Giannis last night. He did, I believe, post a triple-double last night for the Milwaukee Bucks. If you would have told me, guys, that Giannis was going to drop a triple-double and that Brook Lopez was going to score 36 points last night, I would have told you that Milwaukee ran away with this thing and probably won by 10 plus or at least 15 plus points last night. But the bigger story, obviously, Jimmy Butler last night, 19 of 28 from the floor, 3 of 8 from three-point land, 15 of 18 from the free throw line. He finished the game with 56 points. Scott, Milwaukee officially in trouble here.
Well, yes. I mean, they need to win 3 games in a row to avoid getting eliminated. So, yes, they're in trouble. However, according to the betting odds, it seems like people expect Milwaukee to realistically come back. You're looking at the actual prices and a team down 3-1. Once again, Miami needs to win one of the next 3 games to win the series.
Yep.
Milwaukee's roughly plus 120 to win the next 3 games, which I find insane to me. I feel like at that point, you might as well just try to roll over parlay each individual game.
Exactly.
But I understand the argument that Milwaukee still has 2 home games, and you could talk about how, maybe the Heat can find a way to win another game, and maybe they can. But the point is, I really just thought that Milwaukee took their foot off the gas. They were up by basically double digits with about 7 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Butler checked back in and he took over the game, and he ended up once again with 56. But I mean, I've said this for several years, and yes, I know they won the championship, partly because of Kevin Durant's shoe size. I'm not a Budenholzer guy. I never have been. I just think that he's a coach who refuses to make adjustments. He's kind of stuck in his own ways. When he does make an adjustment, it seems to come a game or two late, and it feels like the obvious adjustment from yesterday's game was get the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands and make somebody else beat you. And Budenholzer just decided, you know what? He's got 50 points. Let's see if he can get to 56. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's the one guy who's been killing you the entire game. Now, shout out to Caleb Martin. He had a couple of big shots. Shout out to Kyle Lowry, who played some great defense. But I feel like it's common sense. If one guy scores 22 or 24 points in the first quarter and he's pushing 60, maybe you should double team the guy at some point in the fourth quarter while your team is falling apart. And Budenholzer didn't do anything. He just stood there and watched his team implode. And I feel you'd even say that about the Nets series, which they won in the end in overtime in Game 7. But Durant was like the only player worth a damn. He had a 40-point triple-double in that series. And Budenholzer was just letting Durant torch this team the entire series. And you figure at some point he's going to make an adjustment. And he never did. And I feel like the issue that you have is with coaching. If Budenholzer loses, or I should say if Milwaukee loses the series, Budenholzer has to get fired. I don't care how many championships you've won. I don't care how many 1 seeds you've gotten. Budenholzer has to be fired if they lose this series. Because I know Butler was unbelievable. I know that he took the game over. But if you're the opposing coach, you can't continually let the same player take the game over when the writing was on the wall in the first 5 minutes of regulation.
Yeah, there was a stretch where
he had 24 points, like 22, 24 points in the first
Bucks,
quarter.
Yeah, in the first quarter. But there was a stretch, I think, in that fourth quarter, like you mentioned, I think when Butler did check back in, where they went on like a 12-0 run to take the lead with like,
I think it was
13-0
to tie the game, I think, yeah.
And then down the stretch, I mean, Jimmy Butler hit a couple clutch shots, like you mentioned. Caleb Martin hit a couple clutch shots as well. But yeah, again, a lot of times we get into these conversations about teams that, from an X's and O standpoint, a lot of the time it is coaching, right? And I think that I think Coach Bud is a great regular season coach. Playoffs, it's a different story. I think that the Bucks were fortunate. I'm not going to say the cards lined up for them when they did win the championship, because I know both Phoenix and Milwaukee dealt with teams in their respective conferences that the teams were dealing with significant injuries to their opponents. So, but again, not to take anything away from the Bucks. I mean, they still have a great team. They still have a great roster. I wonder what would happen if you put like an Eric Spoelstra as a head coach of the Miami Heat, or maybe even a Nick Nurse as a head coach of that team. So, yeah, look, backs against the wall now. It's win or go home in every.
Do you agree, by the way,
games.
if the Bucks lose this series, Budenholzer will be fired? Do you think he has the reputation for winning a ring? They're just going to keep him anyway.
Yeah, they're going to keep him anyways. And again, I think that call may just come down to Giannis. I really do think so, but I don't think they'll fire him just because, like you mentioned, he does have that ring, or that they just won a couple seasons ago. But
I think they should. If they lose.
Yeah. Delonte, thoughts from last night?
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much hit on it. And JB was hitting on it in the chat also. The timeout, like they went on, I think it was 6-0, then it was 8-0, and then like Charles outlined it too on the broadcast. Like you got to call a timeout and you got to do some adjusting. Now on one end, I can see like how, okay, you want to live with, okay, if Jimmy's making those shots, like, okay, I get it. But when he's on a heater like that, like you got to do something to get the ball out of his hands, especially if they're compromised. They don't really have a ball handler on the floor. They started Strus and Vincent at their backcourt, two guys who aren't known for, ball handling or initiating offense. So I thought that was a mistake right then, not putting Drew Holiday on a ball handler trying to force turnovers, because they would get easy entry passes to Jimmy whenever they wanted.
Yeah.
Now you could tell he was exhausted after the first quarter because he didn't do much in between the second and third quarter. But I thought the game was pretty much lost whenever Jimmy was on the bench and they didn't extend the lead. Like, he was on the bench for the first 4 or 5 minutes for the fourth quarter, and I think maybe they might have been a plus. I think Miami might have been like a +2. That was during that Caleb Martin stretch. So I thought that he lost the game right there. Honestly, I thought Milwaukee was in control, like you said, went off at the top. I thought they were in control of the game for, 3.5 quarters. Yeah. Especially after the no-look Giannis pass to get him his 10th assist. I thought it was over. And the fall-away three from Brook. I thought it was over. But, yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of Bud either. I'm not sure how he has the coaching. I guess he just lacks some intellect as far as managing the game, which is kind of hard to figure when you come from a Greg Popovich coaching tree. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Milwaukee probably can still win the series. I'm probably in the minority, but they're probably going to smash.
I'm not picking Miami to officially win the series. I just think the odds are absurd.
Yeah, no, they are. Really absurd. Yeah, they are. I wouldn't bet on them, but you could just bet, like you said, Scott, you could just bet it individually. But 120 is a joke. Like, that's a joke, seriously. But I mean, they're probably going to be out of gas in Game 5 with travel, so Milwaukee is likely to smash them here. If they get to a Game 7, I think Milwaukee, best player on the floor with Giannis, I think they'll come out and show that they're the superior team. But I am worried about some of the things that transpired in that game, as far as from a coaching standpoint. They literally got beat by one player, like you said. So, it's not really much to add. It's just an incredible game by Jimmy. Incredible. He's making some unbelievable shots that if he made last year, they probably would have been in the title game. But I think the Bucks gonna make some adjustments from a game to game and get it done and win the series 4-3. That's just I guess it's not a hot take because the odds don't reflect that.
But just to ask, who was guarding Butler for most of the game?
Probably a mixture of Drew and Middleton.
Yeah, I know
Drew was on him. I think Drew was really on him.
That was kind of my point, because
Drew didn't have it
was a rhetorical question, because Drew is regarded as being arguably the best defensive player in the league. In fact, in the random voting amongst, they had to do that poll with anonymous NBA players. They voted for Drew Holiday to be the best defensive player in the league. I believe he was the first place vote getter, and he basically gave up 56 on his head in a playoff game, not to mention all the brick shots that Holiday had on the offensive end. He was really bad yesterday. So I think that's one player I kind of have to call out. I can't give all of the blame to Coach Bud. A lot of it does go to Coach Bud for overall game planning and a lack of adjustments. But I got to call out Holiday because I thought he was very, very bad on both ends of the floor. I think I have to at least mention him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Drew Holiday. He could be on my team any day of the day.
Yeah, it was a bad game.
It was just one bad game. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But sometimes you just have a player that, they just walk into the gym and you can't do anything as much as you want to, if you're one of the best defensive players and that ball that you're throwing into that hoop is going to feel like an ocean to that player. And that was just Jimmy Butler last night. So, it was one game. It's one game. But again, for Milwaukee, now you got to go out and win 3 straight. Now we'll find out the grit and how this team responds to adversity, because I don't think they've been in this situation over the past couple of playoffs. So we'll find out. I think that Game 5 they should probably come out and smash, and then we'll see what happens in Game 6. So, but yeah, give credit to Miami. Give a lot of credit to Jimmy Butler, one of the better playoff performances that we have seen in some time from a player to drop 50+ points. All right, guys, before we get over to the Lakers and Grizz game, let me tell everyone about our friends at Shady Rays. They've got you covered from the sun to the slope with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair that we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. With Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good. Today, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. And if you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the year. Go to shadyrays.com and use promo code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try it for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. All right, gentlemen, second game of the night. We saw the LA Lakers defend home court. They get the victory in overtime last night against the Grizzlies. This game ended up in a 117-111 victory for the LA Lakers. If you had the Lakers, you want to probably send a thank you gift to Dylan Brooks.
That was the first overtime game, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it was.
I believe so. Yeah, it was. Yeah. No, Minnesota and Denver went to overtime.
Oh, that's right. That went to overtime a day
on
or
Sunday.
2 ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot Minnesota blew like an 11-point lead in the final 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Dylan Brooks, maybe he bet on the Lakers last night because he fell for no apparent reason in that final, what was like 0.2 left or something like that.
0.3.
Yeah, 0.3. But nonetheless, Lakers get the cover, whether it's 4.5 or 5, depending on your number. But they win the game by 6. Game goes over the total thanks to overtime. LeBron last night really led the way for the LA Lakers. 22 points, 20 rebounds. He played 45 of the 53 minutes last night. All 5 starters for the Lakers were in double figures last night for the LA Lakers. Austin Reeves, also another great game for him. I mean, the guy has really just flourished this season for the Lakers. He finished up with 23. For the Grizzlies, Desmond Bane, not really an efficient night last night. He did score 36. He was 13 of 29 from the floor, 3 of 12 from three-point land. Ja Morant chipped in with 19 points. Didn't have a great shooting night either. He was 8 of 24, but the Lakers do get the victory at the end of the day. They take a commanding 3-1 lead over Memphis as the series will head back to Memphis for game 5. But Delonte, lead us off with this game. Any takeaways from this game last night between the Lakers and the Grizz?
Yeah, I pretty much just thought that the Memphis lost it more than the Lakers won the game. Down the stretch, I think they were up like 7 with like 3 minutes left. I thought they didn't take advantage of AD being out for the most part of the time. They had no rim protection. Like Xavier Tillman, Triple J, Ja, they were getting to the rim at ease when AD wasn't in the game, and they just went away from it for whatever reason. Now Bane hit some timely shots, but he missed back-to-back threes in the corner, I think, to go up 4. I think they were up 101-100 after AD missed free throw. So he missed both of those good looks. I just thought Memphis played well enough to win. They just didn't play well enough down the stretch to win. But overall, and about 3.5 to 3 3/4 quarters, they played well enough to win. The Lakers just took it from them in the end, but I don't think it was something impressive or something that was like eye-popping as far as what the Lakers did. I mean, LeBron had 12 points, I think, going into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, or midway through the third, something like that. Because I was talking to one of my friends who's a big LeBron fan, and I'm like LeBron and AD haven't touched the ball in I don't know how many possessions. Not good. So, yeah, I mean, Memphis blew it. They were hunting fouls, kind of like what Sacramento was doing in Golden State. Ja was going to the rim reckless, not even looking to score the ball, which he shouldn't have been rewarded for it, because I don't think referees should award guys for going up and just trying to draw a foul instead of having to at least try to finish. So I thought that played a part in it. At the end of the day, Memphis just doesn't have enough guys. They don't have enough shot makers. I thought Kennard should have played more. Some of the things that he was doing, I thought were pretty good with him and Bane on the floor as far as like spacing the floor. Too many Tillman minutes down the stretch. AD in the paint obviously is, one of the best shot blockers that we have in the game. So why not put Triple J at the 5, put Kennard at the 4, and space out the floor? You have AD out of the paint, so Ja can have, those lanes to the basket. I want him to speak on Dylan Brooks. I mean, coward. He wants to talk all the shit in the world.
Is he going to be in the league next year?
I mean, I think people
he's
take
a
him
free
a
agent. Like, is a team actually going to sign him?
Yeah, somebody will sign him.
Some
think so?
team will sign him.
Memphis will probably sign him, to be honest.
I think Memphis is done.
I don't
with
think.
him,
I
to
think
be
they're
honest
done
now.
with him.
Memphis
Yeah.
is done.
And
I'm
people
not
say
sure
that
about any
people
other
say that about
teams,
Draymond, but he's still there.
But Draymond is
Draymond's
actually
good.
like he's he's like I would definitely have Draymond over Dylan Brooks.
Yeah,
on
I'm
my
not
team.
saying that, but
Yeah.
I think Memphis. I think the identity.
I think
of their
Draymond's
team,
leaving Golden State too during the offseason, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think
see.
Memphis
He's going to
needs the
LA.
identity for his team because they don't have like who's the other defender, on ball defender, not Jaren Jackson. Like they don't have another on ball defender to take place of what. Now he is a decent defender.
Nah,
Like
who
I won't
plays
take that away
defense
from
these
him.
days?
But as far as you want to talk all this stuff about these other guys and then not speak to the media, that's cowardly to me. No respect for him at all in that aspect. But yeah, I don't think it was nothing crazy that the Lakers did to win. I thought Memphis blew it. Lakers will probably get smashed next round when Golden State comes to town. So,
yeah, I think that this series is kind of playing out how I thought. I think like we knew John Moran was going to have his games. I know it wasn't last night, but there's just a significant fall. I've talked about this numerous times. It's just a significant fall off after John Moran that like they don't have that next consistent star or consistent scorer. Like we know Desmond Bane can get his as well, but they're gonna have to get another star player, another superstar next to John Moran if this team wants to have success. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a great defensive player, but you need like Desmond Bane. I think could be a good 3 for this team, but you need to get another star along.
yeah, I agree.
John Moran for this team to have success or make it deep playoff run.
Well, what position are you thinking of? Like small.
I think it would
forward
have to be
superstar?
like a
They got to get some depth too.
wing.
They don't have any depth.
Yeah. Like that bench is like, I mean, it's Luke. I mean, no disrespect to Luke Kennard, but it's Luke Kennard, David Roddy. I know they're missing Steven Adams and Brandon Clark as well, but I think they probably have to get like a small forward position. I don't think it could be a shooting guard. Like you have Desmond Bane there, and we know how ball dominant John Moran is, but he's going to have to learn how to play some defense. Number one, John Morant, and also be a team player. But we'll talk about that conversation on the offseason. Scott, any takeaways from the Lakers and Grizz last night?
It was a very ugly game, as I said before. The Grizzlies, I agree with Delonte. I thought the Grizzlies had the game, basically won. Shout out to D'Angelo Russell, though. Had a couple of big three-pointers and big shots there in the fourth quarter to keep the Lakers in it. But I have to give him props. You know, if I'm going to roast him, I got to give him props for making some big shots late in the game. But it was the perfect storm for them. Memphis was getting killed early. They cut it to basically 2 or 4 before half.
Yeah.
They cut it to 2 before half. AD no-showed the game offensively. He went 4 for 13. And you're thinking, okay, LeBron only has 22 points. AD only scores 12. You have to win that game. Just as simple as that. You have to win it. And I thought what really killed Memphis, I know that nobody could really hit a three-pointer in the entire game for both teams. The Grizzlies in that game went 9 for 42 from 3. Lakers went 10 of 36, and really nobody could shoot. But Memphis, you have to make some more shots. Bane had 36 points. He was only 3 for 12 from 3. He hit none of the big three-pointers they needed down the stretch. He missed a couple in the far end corner. Then he had one in the short end corner in overtime. Really couldn't make a shot late. I thought Ja's shot selection throughout the game was really just not great. I understand the argument is, well, Ja's not a great three-point shooter, and the Lakers are packing the middle. So what is Ja supposed to do? That's kind of my point. That's why I kind of have some issue with his offensive game. I know that he's a pretty good shooter at the mid-range floater, but I really hated what Memphis was doing in overtime because AD, whether he was good offensively or not, AD when healthy, or even when like 60% healthy, is what, a top 5 defensive player in the league?
3 probably.
I think he's a top 7 player overall when healthy.
Yeah. When healthy, I think he's the best defensive player in the league. Sure. I think AD, though, is at this point probably like 70%, give or take. So can you explain to me why every single possession in overtime, Memphis is calling a pick and roll with AD involved to get AD switched on to John Moran? Why would you even bother trying to do that? It doesn't make any sense. I just hated everything Memphis did in overtime in terms of offensive game planning because AD is your best defensive player. And yes, I know the argument in principle, you want opposing centers to be guarding your point guard, not when it's
AD.
Anthony Davis.
No.
Like you should probably get Reeves or somebody else switched on him that Ja can actually blow past. But the entire overtime was getting AD away from the basket, but Ja's not a good enough shooter to make AD pay for sagging off of him and guarding him in the paint. I just hated Jenkins' entire offensive game plan in overtime, and it looked like Memphis was clueless the entire overtime. So
yeah,
That was my issue. I hated the game plan of getting AD involved in pick and rolls when he did a good job on Ja the entire night. They made no adjustments from that.
Yeah, to piggyback from your pick and roll thing, like he was guarding Xavier Tillman, which he was essentially playing center field. So like he doesn't have to guard him outside the paint. So in the pick and roll, I mean they can just trap him. Xavier Tillman's not going to knock down a three, so they can just trap Ja, make him give up the ball, and then the rotation is only but so far that he can go to protect the rim. So I mean, yeah, I didn't get that either. I thought
don't get me wrong, Kennard wasn't good in the plus minus whenever he did play, but then again, he was mostly with the bench unit. I agree with you about Tillman. I get the argument is we need to rebound, and they still give up a couple of big offensive rebounds anyway. But whatever you were trying to do offensively didn't work, and nobody on your team could shoot except for Kennard last night. You probably should have given Kennard a couple of minutes here and there just because of spacing. He'd give you something. You had nobody who could shoot the entire night from the outside besides Kennard.
That was my issue too.
Like, I think that's the issue, that you're having to rely on Luke Kennard to give you something off the bench.
That's also why plus minus is somewhat misleading at times, because Kennard's mostly with the bench unit, so he's a -10 in like 14 minutes. But once again, Bane couldn't hit a jump shot. Ja was 1 for 6 from 3. Brooks was 1 for 7 from 3. Jackson was 0 for 4. Nobody could shoot.
Yeah, I thought their quality of shots was bad, like in the timing of when they shot those shots. I thought that was like extremely horrible, especially down the stretch of that game. So I think that played a part in it. Like I said, I mean, the Lakers, they won the game, but they kind of didn't do anything to impress me.
But that's kind of how the Lakers need to win. They need to win ugly.
Yeah. And they've done
that. Which is why I think Golden State's going to give them some problems next round, because Golden State's going to make AD and LeBron run, and they could actually hit jump shots. But the Lakers, if they could choose the script, they want a physical game that's relatively ugly, like the game was yesterday, and it worked out for them. But Memphis had a decent amount of shots from 3, and they couldn't hit any of them. So,
yeah, we'll see. Now the series will shift back to Memphis for Game 5. Lakers looking to close it out in that game and advance to, which looks more than likely now, that it will be the Golden State Warriors. All right, guys, before we get into the 3-game schedule here for tonight, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA and NHL playoffs are here, and what better way to get down on some player prop parlays and over at Underdog Fantasy? Besides daily NHL, NBA, and MLB games, they've also already got NFL best ball drafts with a guaranteed $500,000 in prizes. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by the SGPN's Draft Week. SGPN is holding a free NFL Drafts Props contest exclusively for members in our Discord. It's completely free to join, and the winner gets $250 in cash and a $50 SGPN gift card. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord and go to the NFL channel for the sign-up link. All right, guys, we've got 3 games on the schedule here tonight in the NBA playoff. Let's kick it off with the first game. We've got the Atlanta Hawks. They are going to be in Boston here tonight. Boston looking to close the series out as they have a 3-1 lead over the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, the big news in this story, no DeJounte Murray. He made contact with a referee at the end of Game 4 as they were walking off the floor. So no DeJounte Murray in this game.
To be fair, I'm sure he had some flights already booked, so he knew he wouldn't be available for Game 5. Yeah, so now he can go to the airport.
He probably I didn't even see that. Him bump the ref.
Yeah, they're walking off. He bumped him and he said something in his ear and then he walked away. So he wanted to let him know he was going to be on vacation in a couple of days and he wanted to wish him a happy offseason.
He probably told his agent, if we lose Game 3, just go in and book my flights and I'm going to do something stupid. Game 4. I'm going to be off to vacation. But probably lose their best defender at this point. I mean, Boston has still been getting whatever they want really offensively, especially over the last 2 games in this series. But right now, the number stands at 13. Delonte, is a smash spot for the Celtics, or do you think the Hawks can cover this number?
Yeah, I mean, the Celtics should blow them out. The only thing I have a problem with as far as laying the number is if, like, let's say, for instance, they're up. Now the Celtics bench is more than capable of, you know, sustaining a decent lead. I mean, they got guys who play, like, their bench guys play with the starting five, so it's not like they're just bottom feeders or whatever. But my issue is, obviously, you know, the history of Robert Williams as far as his injury history. So if things get out of hand early, let's say 14 to 15 in the fourth quarter, does Missoula pull those guys, you know, to prevent injury? That's the only thing, because I'm pretty sure he has enough faith in Grant Williams, I guess, you know, Brogdon to a certain extent, and some of those lesser guys to get in and just play even basketball and win by, you know, 8 or 9. That's the only issue I have with laying the number. But I wouldn't look any other way. Like you said, Hawks lost their best defender. Even with Murray on the court, it's a freeway to the basket. Like Brogdon was going to the basket at ease. Smart, even Hurt, going to the basket at ease. And I don't think Boston particularly played that well in game 4, to be honest. And they still put up like over 120.
Generational stat padding by Trae Young in that game, by the way.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
He finished with 35, and I think he had like 14 entering the fourth quarter, and he was really just brutal from the floor until the final 5 minutes. But
I think he had like three back-to-back threes from the logo at like 60 seconds left. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, I wouldn't bet the Hawks at all. I think they're pretty much checked out with all the scrutiny going around in that organization as far as some of the players being in and being out. But the only thing that does worry me is the fact that the Celtics could pull, you know, some of those starters, especially with Jalen's hand issue that's going on. So you don't want to further injure these guys going into the series against Philly when you already kind of have the upper hand on Philly with Embiid supposedly to miss the first game or two. So I'd lean to the Celtics. My favorite play will be a little bit later on when we talk about the total.
Yeah, I think that if they're up by like 20 plus in that fourth quarter with like 8-9 minutes left, that he probably pulls the starters. But I think, like you mentioned, there's still enough bench depth for the Celtics team to, you know, hold on to that lead and get it going here. But I think DeJounte Murray's probably been the more consistent scorer, if not the most consistent scorer in this series in the first 4 games here for the Atlanta Hawks. And he's taken at least 20 plus shots in all 4 games. So they're really going to miss him here tonight. So obviously that's going to open up a lot of shot opportunities for other guys. But as bad as Trae has been, this season, and even it's been the series, I think I find a hard time for the Celtics, for the Hawks here, especially early on. I really do like Celtics early and in the first half as well. Scott, thoughts on this spread here, minus 13?
It really comes down to if Boston cares enough, but if you want to just go based on what I've seen in this series, I think Atlanta's going to get killed. I just think Boston's going to win this game comfortably. Atlanta, not even just based on the fact that they are already outmatched talent-wise, emotionally. You lost your second best player. You're down 3-1. You're on the road in Boston. Do I really think your team's going to show up for this game? Probably not. Like, I don't think that. I think if Boston punches them in the mouth in the first 5 minutes, the game's over. They're going to win this game by 30. So I think that really comes down to the first quarter. If Atlanta can hang in there, and Trae, we've seen be very inefficient in most situations in the series. If Atlanta can hang around for a quarter, it'll do a lot for their confidence. Yeah. But if Boston comes out like it's game 1, and they're immediately up 15, the game's over, and Atlanta's going to lose by 30. I really think that he can make an argument, like I said earlier, in, I believe, game 1, it'll be one of those games you can tell who's going to cover the spread in the first 10 minutes. Yeah. First 5 minutes. It comes down to Atlanta emotionally. If they're fully up to the task, then 13 is too many points. If they get down early and realize our season's over, why are we even bothering? And Boston runs it up on them, and they're up 20 at the half, that wouldn't surprise me either. So I'm going to wait and see how it goes in the first quarter. I lean to the latter. I think that Boston's going to come out and bury him immediately. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Boston, I think, knows deep down they probably should have swept the series, but defensively they kind of showed game 3. I think they give a good effort here. Trae, once again, did some stat padding in game 4, but for the most part, has really not been good in this series at all. Marcus Smart's done a good job defensively against him. Robert Williams has been great in the series defensively. Trae, I feel like instead of taking Atlanta, you might want to try to parlay it if you can. Take the points with something Trae Young related, because with the amount of minutes he's going to play and with the fact that Murray's going to be out, is Trae going to play like 45 minutes tonight? Assuming
has to.
Out?
Yeah, I mean, he has to give them
Kind
the
of has
shot.
to. So the point is, I think you could probably parlay Trey points or Trey assists or maybe all the above with Atlanta to cover if you think Atlanta covers, because it's the only way they can. Trey's going to play too many minutes and take too many shots for him to miss all of them for Atlanta to cover. He has to play decently. Now, then his numbers are going to be inflated, but based on minutes and based on attempts and based on volume and usage, I think that's probably correlated. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Boston's going to win anyway, and I think Trae Young's probably going to struggle. I like the under for Collins. Collins has done nothing the entire series. I don't know what he's good at anymore. He might need surgery on something because he can't shoot. He hasn't been able to finish around the rim. Defensively, he's a bit undersized in terms of weight, so you can get bowled a little bit. I don't know what John Collins does for that team. I do like some role players. I like Bogdan. I like Sadiq Bey. I really like Sadiq Bey. I think he's had a very good series for them. Hunter's been good too, so maybe pivot to those role guys. But I'm going to keep taking unders on John Collins because he just doesn't show up. He hasn't shown up for a single game in the playoffs, and he really just doesn't look healthy. Or I hope for his sake he's not healthy because he's been that bad for a guy making $20+ million. But my overall thoughts in this game, I think Boston probably kills them. I think they're up by double digits at the half, and I think Atlanta rolls over. But if you want to make a case for the Hawks, parlay it with something with Trey because he has to play pretty well if Atlanta's going to cover this number.
Boston has been up by at least a minimum of 3 points in all 4 games in the first quarter. So I think there's another spot where they just come out in that first quarter. Yeah, and take care of business. So I really do like the first quarter for the Boston Celtics here tonight. Thoughts on the total here, Delonte?
Yeah, I'm on the over. More so, I like the team total over Boston 121.5. It doesn't bother me as far as the bench unit coming in because, like I said, I think they can keep it up, and I think Boston's capable of putting up 104, 105 in 3.5 quarters against this Hawks defense. So I like Boston's team total over 121.5 the most. Also, will lean to the over. The Hawks have to play with a lot of pace. They got to play. They're going to be playing with, I guess, one more shooter in the lineup with Bogdan. I'm guessing he'll get the start for Murray, if I'm not mistaken.
He should.
Yeah, so that adds more shooting. It takes away from the defense, adds more shooting. He's a better shooter than Murray is. So I think they have to get up and down, and the only shot is to shoot, north of 43s and to try to stay within the number. So I like the over. More importantly, I like the Boston team total over 121.5.
Scott, thoughts on total?
It's tricky because I think Atlanta's going to no-show the game. So I think Boston's going to cover. So the question is, do I think Atlanta can actually do enough offensively to send this game over? I'm not sure they can. But then again, defensively, without DeJounte, I don't know what your hopes are defensively in this game besides hoping somebody has an off game. It's tough because Atlanta has been playing faster because they kind of need to. But I'm trying to think, is Trey going to actually push a lot in this game, or is he mostly going to try to use pick and rolls? I think I'm going to lean under. I'm basically going to dare Atlanta supporting cast to show up in this game. Trey, I know, was very good once again in garbage time in game 4, but he has not been efficient in basically any game besides the last couple of minutes there in that game 4. But I think I'm going to lean under, mostly because I don't think Atlanta's going to score that easily. And I think Boston, if they go up a lot, might bench everybody in the fourth quarter. I'm going to lean to the under, but I think it's correlated. I think Boston's going to win pretty comfortably, so I'm going to lean under because I think that they're going to rest some guys, and I think that Atlanta's going to mentally no-show the game. So I'm going to lean under, but if you think Atlanta actually keeps it somewhat respectable for 3 quarters, you can lean to the over. I just don't see that happening. I think you're going to see a pretty similar story to game 1.
Yeah, I like the Boston team total over here. I'm not going to overthink it. They've been getting whatever they want offensively, especially over the last 3 games. It's at 121.5 right now. Definitely shop around, try to get the best number. But when you lose DeJounte Murray and you're inserting Bogdanovich into that starting lineup, possibly, I think that's a significant fall off defensively. This backcourt, you're going to have a backcourt of Trae Young and Bogdanovich here tonight. I don't think they're going to be able to stay in front of anybody here tonight. They've been getting to the basket at will as well, have the Boston Celtics. So I'm going to go with the team total over for the Boston Celtics. Let's quickly get into some player props here, guys. Scott, do you like anything?
It's tricky for Boston because, once again, I'm not sure how many minutes anybody's going to play. but I do think Marcus Smart's worth something. He was actually very good offensively in Game 4, so I do think he can keep it rolling there. Of course, Tatum and Brown might do their own thing, but thinking of the props, I like Bay a lot for Atlanta. There's some guys that are kind of blowout proof because they're kind of fringe starters, fringe bench players. They might just throw them out there anyway. I like Bogdanovich. I think he's going to take a bunch of shots, and I think that he's very solid. So I like him threes. Bay, I like for threes. It was 1.5 in Game 4, I believe, and or Game 3 and Game 4, and he was just very solid from 3. So I like those two guys. Trey assists I'm tempted by. I wonder if Boston's going to start trapping, and they're basically going to get the ball out of his hands. We'll see. But I don't mind Trey assists. He had 15 in Game 4. But for the most part, I'm not sure what I really like for Boston because, once again, there's a lot of different ways this game could go where the starters don't play many minutes. I do like Al Horford under, who's done basically nothing in this entire series besides rebound and pass the ball. So I think he had 0 points in Game 4. I don't think he scored. So I'm going to lean to the under on Horford. Besides that, not really. Can I get the over on Okongwu fouls if that exists? Because I think he's going to probably pick up 5 fouls in 15 minutes like he always does. But Hunter, I don't mind. It's mostly just trying to pick which role player you think is going to step up for Atlanta if you think Trey is going to pass the ball a lot. But for Boston, it's pretty tricky because, once again, I'm not sure how many minutes guys are going to play, but I'll lean to Al Horford under because he has really not done anything in terms of shooting this entire series. And John Collins under. I got to take Collins under.
Delonte, player props.
Yeah, I'm waiting on some Bay props. I agree with Scott. I think he has an increased role. He's been doing pretty much everything when he's getting the minutes, but his props aren't out yet, so I just won't speak.
He's been Atlanta's most consistent player in the series. So you
yeah,
can argue him or maybe Hunter.
Yeah, defensively, he does a solid job too. One of the underrated defenders on their team. Well, I mean, they don't have many, but yeah. Bogdan over 17.5 points. He's over in 2 of the last 4 games. He had foul trouble in Game 4, so that kind of limited his rhythm offensively. With him getting an increase, minutes uptick, I think he has a little bit more freedom to shoot and not have to worry about getting subbed out. My favorite one though is Derek White threes over. It's over 2.5. It's at plus 120. You can get plus 120-ish on it. Shop around, make sure you get the best number. He's over in all 4 games. He's shooting 48% from deep. The drive and kick is killing Atlanta. They can't control it. He's getting wide open looks like every other possession. He shot 50% in both home games versus the Hawks, so I wouldn't be surprised if he has 3 or 4 in the first half. So that's one of my favorite props of the slate today.
All right, let's get over to the next game of the night. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are in the Mile High City, Denver right now, a 9.5-point favorite. They are also looking to close this series out. Total sitting at 220 in this game. I will say Scott Foster is officiating this game here tonight, and home teams have been doing very well in Scott Foster's game during the regular season. I'll bring that number up here quickly. So home teams are 42-21 against the spread during the regular season, 45-18 straight up, 40-23 to the over. This is his 4th game that he's officiating in the playoffs. He officiated the first game for the game 1 against the Lakers, but Lakers won that game. But then Phoenix won game 2 with Scott Foster officiating, and then New York won. I think it was I want to say it was the last game that they did win. It was one of the home games, but that trend is continuing right now for Scott Foster right now. But let's start with the side here. Delonte, lead us off with this one. Denver Nuggets minus 9.5 against the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, this is probably the only big favorite that I would lay comfortably. I think 9.5 is somewhat short, especially with I think Kyle Anderson's out this game, right?
Yeah,
Kyle Anderson is out with the eye injury.
Yeah, so I mean that just throws a wrench in their depth. They don't have anybody to guard Michael Porter Jr. as it is, but Kyle Anderson was doing the best job I think that anybody could do on that team. So that loses some defense there, also some playmaking with the second unit. So you're expecting guys like Taurean Prince and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe even Austin Rivers. Might get Austin Rivers sighting tonight. So I'm not sure they have enough to be able to withstand what the Nuggets are going to do. It's important that the Nuggets win this game comfortably, escape without injury, and get ready for Phoenix. It's going to be a big series. So Phoenix is looking to finish Clippers off tonight, and we'll get to that in a second. But I think it's prompt that they get this done pretty good. I mean, even with Anthony Edwards going like Super Saiyan, they still having trouble winning those games or even being competitive. I thought the Nuggets, yeah, they didn't blow it, but they didn't take advantage of Minnesota trying to give them the game, if that makes sense. So I like the Nuggets laying the 9.5. Probably would try to take an alternate number, get them laying like 15. I think they win by 20 tonight.
Scott.
I disagree. I'm going to take the points. I think that Denver has been a team that for several, I'd say, third quarters for the most part, they just no-show the game after halftime. It seems like there's a mental lapse there for about 12 minutes every game where they just let the other team hang around and cut into the deficit. And you look up and they dominated most of the game and they're up 5. I feel like Denver's a team I don't want to lay double digits with, basically, since 9.5 means they're winning by double digits. Minnesota has some life, and they had none of it. Halfway through game 4, and then the third quarter happened and went on a run. Fourth quarter, Edwards took over. Nobody on Denver can guard Edwards, and maybe I'm just hoping Edwards goes for another 40 piece, but I do like the way that he's been carrying himself in this series. He took it personally, in his own words, that they weren't going to get swept. I like how he's played. Cat was fine the last couple of games. He fouled out, but he still had a pretty solid rebounding game. Gobert's been okay recently. I understand that Anderson's been a good role player for them, but Alexander Walker's been good. Prince can hit some shots every now and then, but it's mostly just not wanting to lay 9.5 with a Denver team that really just doesn't seem mentally focused for all 48 minutes. For whatever reason, it seems like they really take their foot off the gas, mostly after halftime, and they kind of let other teams hang around. I feel like I'm going to lean to Minnesota, and I'm hoping Edwards carries them to a cover, but I think this game's going to be close. I think Minnesota was a team that was basically dead in the water, and now they have a little bit of confidence. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but if Denver won by 7, would I be shocked? Not really. I think I'm going to take the points with a team that has actually looked better as the series has gone on. I'm going to lean to Minnesota plus the points.
Yeah, I lean with Minnesota here as well. The only game 1 was where we saw Denver blitz this team, but they were in a bad situation, right? Where the Minnesota Timberwolves coming off the 2 playing games and then having to travel into altitude and play Denver. But other than that, it's really been 9-point victories for the Denver Nuggets. But
and game 2 is a great example of that. They were blowing them out by 20. They no-showed the third quarter. We've seen it a couple of times in the series.
And this could be a possibility where it is another backdoor cover for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know the 2 victories that the Denver Nuggets have had been both by 9 points. And I think, like you mentioned, that Anthony Edwards has found something as the series has progressed, especially after game 1. He's been playing well. I'm looking for that next person to also step up here tonight. I'm not sure it's going to be Karl Anthony Towns. I can't trust him at all anymore. But it's going to have to be somebody else that's going to have to step up, whether it's one of those games where you have a random role player that does step up for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm gonna take the points here at plus 9.5 as well. We've seen the last, I think 2 out of the 4 games have gone over the total. I think it squeaked under the total in game 4 when it did go to overtime, if I'm not mistaken. But total currently sits at 220 here. Scott, any thoughts on that?
It's really tricky. The pace was so ugly in game 3 game 4 that I'm kind of wondering how it's going to play out. I think I'm going to lean to the over because Anderson has done a good job defensively on Michael Porter Jr., etc. And now he's out of the lineup. So I do think Denver's offense can get going a bit. I still don't think that Denver can guard Anthony Edwards. I think Edwards can really go for another 40 piece here. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm going to lean over. I think you'll see some points in this game. It's pretty difficult, though, because Minnesota, I think, plays better when the game is slow. And I'm not sure if Denver wants to run with Jokic. So it is a bit tricky. But I think I'm going to lean to the over and just hope guys make shots. But I'm really on the fence about the total.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from the total as well. I really... Again, this number has pretty much been spot on throughout this series. I know 2 of the games went over, like I mentioned, got into the 230 range, but I just nothing on the total for me. I'll say that I do like the side, obviously, for Minnesota. But Delonte, any thoughts on the total, and then take us into your player props as well?
Yeah, as far as total wise, I'm kind of conflicted with you guys because on one end, I think that Minnesota has to play fast to be able to get out and transition and um, get the ball in Ant's hands in transition and let him make plays. But on the other hand, they're kind of shorthanded. So how many of those guys are going to be able to step up and perform? So they kind of want to maybe slow it down so they can get more minutes, more effective minutes from their starters. But yeah, so I'm just conflicted. I'll lean to the under just because I think that the pace slows down for Minnesota. And, Denver, they don't play at a fast pace. They're pretty comfortable playing at any pace. Um, Maybe a Denver team total over. It's probably the better look here. But as far as the full total, I'll lean to the under. I probably won't be on it, though. Player prop wise, I
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
we talked about Michael Porter Jr. I like him over 17.5 points. One less defender without Anderson being there. He was pretty much the primary defender on him. And even then, he's been in a good rhythm all series. He's shooting 48% from three, 53% from the field, over twice in the series. I like Ant over 2.5 steals and blocks. Probably going to ladder it up to like 3.5 if I can get plus money on it. He's averaging 4.3 steals plus blocks in the series. He's been more locked in defensively than I've probably seen him all year. And I know Scott doesn't like the saying if he wants to play defense, but he's playing it right now. I mean, obviously back against the wall, so he's doing a really good job in that area. So I expect, the same effort. I think he's had 5 in 2 of the 3 games, plus steals and blocks combined. So I think he'll get there tonight. I don't see Torian Prince props, but I'll be on him. He's got to be one of those guys that steps up and hits a couple threes in the absence of Anderson. So I like Torian Prince points and threes. I just don't have a number on it just yet because it's not posted. I'll probably put it in Discord or something.
Scott, player props.
For me, I think I'm got to go with the obvious choice. Give me Anthony Edwards over. He's been so good in the series. It seems like he has taken full responsibility of this team, which you wanted to see, and he's been great. So I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards over. I think he probably goes for 35 tonight. It's why I think Minnesota is going to end up covering. But I'm going to go with Edwards over. I really like how he took over the game in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, and the three-pointer at the end of overtime. I like his over. I probably like Towns under for points because I don't trust him to actually score. The rebounds, maybe I could tempt myself into an over. But the issue with Cat is always foul trouble and the lack of overall engagement offensively. I'm going to lean to the under on Cat points because he could get into foul trouble in this game. We'll see. Besides that, do I think Jamal Murray is going to have a game to rival Anthony Edwards again? I'm not totally sure about that, but I think my main player prop that I like will be the over on Edwards. I just love the way that he's been kind of playing as the series has progressed, and I do think that with his confidence continuing to rise and with Denver really having no answers defensively, I think Edwards is really kind of just an auto bet for overs in the immediate future. I'm going to go with the over on Edwards here. I think Edwards has a good game.
Yeah, I'm with Edwards as well. I already bet this was at 28.5. I mean, like you mentioned, Scott, he's found something over the past 3 games for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And again, if they want a chance to win this game outright or even cover the number, they're going to have him put up at least 30-plus points here tonight at minimum. And get something from somebody else on this roster. So Anthony Edwards for me as well. Didn't have anything else for this game, guys?
Nope.
I mentioned Cat rebounds. Maybe you could tempt yourself into, but once again, foul trouble has been an issue with him. I don't mind Alexander Walker
Cat.
threes, who made a couple big shots in Game 4. We said that Anderson's is not going to play, so he should get more minutes, but I think Walker three-pointers might be worth a look because he did make some shots and maybe some confidence in himself and maybe even with Edwards and everyone passing him the ball. I don't mind the threes for Alexander Walker.
All right. Last game of the night here. Another team looking to close it out. That's going to be the Phoenix Suns. They are at home in Game 5 with a 3-1 lead. Currently, as we are sitting here, the line is at 12.5 for the Phoenix Suns. No Kawhi Leonard again for the Los Angeles Clippers. Total sitting at 224 in this game. Scott, why don't you lead us off? Suns laying 12.5 at home, looking to close things out.
So if Phoenix would cover, it wouldn't totally shock me, but I'm going to take the points. The Clippers have hung around in this series, and whether it's because the Suns are just letting Westbrook go for 30 every night, or whether it's because the Suns, kind of like Denver, doesn't seem fully focused for a full 48 minutes. For whatever reason, the Clippers have been able to hang around in each individual game. They haven't won many of them, but they've been close in a couple of these. I can see this game really being a single-digit game for most of the way through. I'm not picking the Clippers to win. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. I think the Suns win this game. But do I think they win by margin? No. Do I think they need to win by margin? No. I don't think the Suns really care. I just think the Suns want to win and move on. And the Clippers have really shown the ability to hang around and to not roll over when things look ugly. So I'm going to take the points here. The spread just seems a little bit inflated. I'm not sure why the spread is this high because Phoenix has not really covered this number. And yet it was, I'm trying to remember what it was in game 4. What was it? It was like 8, 9? What was the
7.5?
It was 7.5.
Yeah.
And they did cover that in the end, but a lot of it came down to some free throws, and Chris Paul made that shot from behind the backboard, and some stuff happened down the stretch. But for me, I'm going to go with the points here. I just think that the Clippers find a way to hang around. It's going to come down to the wire with the spread. I think Phoenix wins this game by either 10 or by like 14. It's going to be somewhere in that range, but I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to hope that the Clippers put together a good effort. Maybe Mann has a good game. Maybe Powell goes nuts again. I'm going to lean to the points, though.
Yeah, I'm going to take the points here as well. I think this is a smidge too high. I know the Suns have won by 14 and 12 in game 2 and game 4, but like you said, Scott, that I think Westbrook will still get his, but maybe somebody else steps up, whether it's Norman Powell, whether it's Eric Gordon gets off to a hot start, and they're just kind of around this number. And I think obviously Phoenix will win this game, but it could be in the realm of like 8 to 9 point victory here tonight for the Phoenix Suns. Somebody, again, it just feels like somebody is going to step up outside of Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook. This number does seem a little inflated. I know they did win by 12, like I mentioned, but I think there was some late free throws or a late dunk there that kind of got them over that number for the Phoenix Suns in game 4. But do think they win the game. But again, I think this will probably be like a 9-10 point victory. I think they'll just squeak within this number. And I think like Clippers will lay everything out on the floor here tonight, trying to extend this series. So we shall see. But I'll take the points here. Clippers plus 12.5 as well for me. Delonte, what do you got?
Yeah, I like the Clippers also. Suns don't have any, they don't have any, I guess, conviction to win by margin here. They probably want to get KD, Booker, and Chris Paul ready for the next series because they've been playing like 40 plus minutes in most of these games. And like you said, they've only won by over 13 or over 12 once. And that was in a game that was close down the stretch. All of these games have been pretty competitive down the stretch. And then, like Scott mentioned, free throws and just some ill-advised turnovers, they turn the game into a double-digit victory. Is kind of misleading. So
yeah,
I think the Clippers hang on. They have the depth to be able to withstand some of the things. I'll probably look at the Suns in the second half. I know it's kind of hard to dictate a number, but the Clippers probably come out, fight as they usually do in the first quarter, first half, and then the Suns probably just pull away slowly but surely with KD and Booker. But overall, I'll take the points with the Clippers. I think it's going to be going right into the total. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a slower paced game. I think Phoenix will try to slow it down, grind the Clippers out in a half court type of setting. I think that tends to lean to the Clippers as far as pace wise. So I think both of these teams will be able to do some things defensively and not let each other's offense dictate, what they want to do. So I like the under in the game, and I think that is correlated to the underdog.
Scott, total.
For me, I think I'm going to lean over in this one because I think the Clippers have to go small. And I thought they figured it out when they were competitive in game 3, and then they gave Zubac 24 minutes. I don't know what Ty Lue's doing. I get the team is, outmanned. It is what it is, but I don't know why Zubac's playing so many minutes. He's given them nothing. And we know that Ayton can struggle against smaller guys because he doesn't exactly look to dominate in the paint, even though according to him, he's been dominating in the series, right? That was the
so bad.
Dominating. Is that what he was going with?
Yeah.
Either way, he's going to trademark that, but still, I don't think Zubac should play that much. I think the Clippers have to go small, and I really don't know why he's still playing 20-something minutes. They're going to lose anyway, most likely. You got to try something new. Why not go small? Give Covington some minutes at the 5, see what happens, and shoot more threes. I'm going to lean over because I'm hoping that Ty Lue realizes Zubac shouldn't see the floor in the series. I'm going to lean over, but if Ty Lue plays Zubac 20-something minutes, then, that's his problem. So I'm going to lean over, but you can make an argument either way.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go with an under in this game as well. Don't love it. I think it'll be something similar to what we saw in game 4. Maybe it starts off, with a lot of pace and guys getting up and down the floor, but I think it really slows down in the second half, where we've seen it, I think, in multiple series where the pace really does slow down. I know the second halves have been higher scoring for the Clippers and Suns games, but I mean, if you want to look at an over, I'd probably look at a Suns team total over. I think just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to get whatever they want, like they have been all series long. So nothing exactly for me on the total. Let's get to player props before we wrap it up here, guys. Delonte, player props.
The only player prop I like, which I actually love it, is Russell Westbrook over 42.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I think he's been playing extremely well down the stretch without those two key guys. He's been playing incredible defense on Booker and KD, just rotating on those guys. So I think he's going to – obviously, Russell's going to always bring it. His energy is going to always be there. Never going to have to question his effort. The shot so far, he's been shooting the three slightly better. So without those two guys, I mean, the shots are going to be there for him. So I like him over 42.5. I like Eric Gordon over 2.5 threes. He's went over twice and landed on 2 in one of those games. I think it was the last game actually that it landed 2, game 4. So I like him over 2.5 threes made. He shot 7 of 16 from 3 in the first 2 games in Phoenix. So I mean, he's pretty comfortable there. So I like both of those props to go over.
Scott, any player props?
I agree with Westbrook. I think he might be in line for a triple-double tonight. We'll see. But he's going to have the ball in his hands the entire game. And he should, because he's been very good for this team. I like Zubac under. It's at 9.5. I don't know why it's at 9.5. He's gone under this number in every game in this series. And most of these games, he hasn't been close. To read off Zubac's numbers and points here. So not every game. He went over in the first 2 games. The last 3 games, 8 points, 6 points, 4 points. And he's been hovering around 22 to 24 minutes. I'm on the under for Zubac. He just hasn't taken many shots. And once again, I think they have to go smaller. And I think they have to push it a little bit in terms of the pace. Do you think Marcus Morris sees the floor? I mean, they started him last game, but he was so bad. I don't know how Ty Lue keeps him in and gives him reasonable minutes when he was that useless in game 4. He was so brutal in that game. How does man not play 30, 35 minutes? I think Morris has to be the odd man out, right? Like, I don't think you can use him.
I think somebody started for him in the second half of that game 4. I don't know if it was Terrence Mann or who it was, but I did see a note that came across that somebody started in Marcus Morris' spot in the second half of game 4. But
I don't even see props on Morris. That's how low the books think of him. But
it's a thing that they just don't have the bodies right now, right? They're missing Paul George, they're missing Kawhi Leonard. The Ty Lue has to play these guys. He doesn't have a choice, which is going to be the demise of the LA Clippers, and it has been.
I see Morris at 7.5. Morris is at 7.5. It's the over's minus 130. He took 13 shots last game. He only made 3 of them, but he took 13 shots, and his points prop is 7.5. So I think that the odds makers are telling you he's not going to see the floor for basically any of this game, and I wouldn't really blame anybody. But I'm going to lean under on Morris. That number seems extremely low for a guy that had that much volume, so I don't think he's going to play pretty much at all in this game. But for me, I'm on Zubac under. Gone under in 3 straight. Once again, the Clippers have to go small. You have to try to copy what Dallas did last year, which is just force Ayton to guard the three-point line, pray you make your shots, and also by taking Zubac out, you create more room in the lane for Westbrook to drive. So, once again, I don't know why he hasn't made that adjustment, but stop playing Zubac. I'm going to go with the under on his points.
The only prop I did like in this game was Devin Booker steals and blocks over 2.5. That's at, I think, plus 135, if I'm not mistaken. But he's done very well as far as getting blocks and steals throughout the series. Game 1, he had 4 and 3. Game 2, he only ended up with 1 steal. But over the last 2 games, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and then he had 3 steals in Game 4. So I think that continues here tonight for Devin Booker. That is at plus 135.
Do you agree that there is, I don't want to say a growth to Booker's game, but at least acknowledging that he's been very, very solid defensively in the series? Is it because he hates the Clippers, or has he actually kind of made a growth on that end?
I think it's a growth thing. Yeah. I think it's a growth thing.
Because he has been very good defensively, but I want to kind of give him his flowers for that because people talk about the offense.
You want to know why? It's because of Kevin Durant. That's why he got more rim protection in the back, him and Ayton, and he's seeing more one-on-one coverage than ever before. So he's not extending as much energy offensively. So he's able to, put forth more effort defensively because he's seeing one-on-one coverage. Like they can't trap off that pick and roll because you're gonna leave Booker, Chris Paul. Chris Paul is struggling right now, but
he was okay last game though.
Yeah, but you got to think they got to pick their poison of who they double off that pick and roll. So, and they're using the small pick and roll with Well, I guess you don't want to call it small because Kevin Durant's 7 foot, but with Booker and KD running that pick and roll, you got to choose. Are you going to blitz? You're going to drop? You're going to what are you going to do? So it's kind of a tough decision that you put the defense in. So I like you said, I like how Booker's been playing defensively. I think it's just goes back to how he's playing offensively, like with so much ease and less effort. He doesn't have to carry the team as much.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else for this game?
Nothing.
All right.
No. So what do you think about my Zubac prop? Like, I don't understand why the line is that high.
I cannot back you in any center props that we're taking unders.
I won Capella.
This is going to be a game where
I'm only 1-1 on the center props. I won Capella.
20 and 20. This feels like a Nick Claxton situation, Scott.
Okay.
But it makes sense. In all seriousness, it does make sense, right? That he hasn't really been playable. The minutes, 20 some odd minutes that he's averaging. He's not going to get the shot attempts. He's the last probably offensive option. The only points that he is going to get, it's probably on lobs or it's going to be on rebounds and put back shot attempts for Zubac. So, yeah. I'm not going to argue against it. Again, they also have Mason Plumlee coming off the bench for them as well. So
yeah, and for the record, it's not really a rant because I know we kind of want to wrap it up, but just to at least mention it, I understand that Paul George and Kawhi are out. I get all that. Mm-hmm. I am so tired of people talking about Ty Lue like he's a top 5 coach in the league. I don't think he's a great coach. I think
he was
he's
good
fine.
At one point. Yeah,
I think he's above average. Like I'd put him probably somewhere, but in that like 10 to 13 range. But every year people are like, Ty Lue, genius. He's a what? Is he? Is he really that good as a coach? Like I don't know why people think he's that good as a head coach. He's fine. People say he's top 5 or top 3. Who said that he's the best coach in the league? That was Stephen A. Who said that?
I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked.
Somebody said that is like that he's the best coach. I'm not a fan of Ty Lue. I think he's fine.
Yeah, I think I basically think that personality. It works with players too. I think personality plays a part in how people feel. Like from a perspective of how good somebody's like Tyronn Lue, you never hear anybody say anything bad about him. So obviously that would just think, oh yeah, he's a great coach. So nobody's gonna say, oh yeah, he's kind of average or he's kind of below average because of his personality. And I think that's kind of somewhat what we see with some of these guys as far as like players. Like we don't want to, chastise some of these players for being not so good when their personality is, pretty good. So I think that's a reason why.
I see JR mentioning in a question down below Ty Lue versus Jason Kidd. Once again, I don't think Ty Lue's that bad of a coach. I just don't think that he's a top 5 coach in the league. Jason Kidd is objectively a bad coach. Yeah. I've gone on record on this several times. He couldn't do anything with Giannis. The Nets, whatever. He spills a drink, gets an extra timeout. I'll give him bonus points for that. But I don't think he's a great coach, Jason Kidd. Ty Lue, I think, is fine. But I'm tired of hearing him being put in the elite of the elite because people go, he's a great coach. And then they go, well, LeBron carried his team to a win. Well, which is it? Either you're a great coach or LeBron goes for 40 in a playoff series and you end up winning. Like, I don't think Ty Lue's that great of a coach, but whatever. I think he's okay.
All right, guys, let's close it out here with our lock and dog for the Tuesday games. Delonte, lead us off, my man.
Yeah, for the lock, I'm going with Boston over 121.5 team total. We talked about it earlier. I think they have extreme success against the Atlanta defense without their best defender. And even with that defender, they were still getting what they wanted. So I think that continues tonight. with my dog, I'm going to go with Derek White over 2.5 threes made. You can get plus 120, plus 125 if you want to shop around. He's been on fire at home and throughout the whole series, so I don't think anything changes. He's going to get some wide open looks tonight, and I think they bury Atlanta tonight. So those are my two picks for lock and dog.
Scott, what do you got?
All right. So for my lock, you know what? It's kind of like a troll play, but at the same point, it's still funny because it actually won last game. Give me Zubac under 9.5. I'm just going to do it. At this point, it's a running joke. I'm only 1-1 in those, so it's not as bad as you might think. Just Claxton was so bad, and the first half for Capella was so bad, but I got there in the end. I'm going with under on Zubac. Once again, I was going back to Ty Lue, and I think he might be an overrated coach. Please stop giving Zubac this many minutes. He's giving you nothing out there. You have to go small. I don't know what you're waiting for. I think that Zubac 9.5 is too high. He's gone under in 3 straight, doesn't get the shot attempts. He's playing once again around 24 minutes or so, if that. So I don't see a lot of run for him in this game. Give me the under 9.5 points on Zubac. You can tail it, you can fade it, whatever you want to do with it, but that's what I'm taking for my lock. And for my dog, I have a couple of choices. It's either Edwards 30-plus points or Minnesota third quarter money line, because Minnesota's actually been really good in the third quarter in the series. They got killed in game 1. Game 2, they had a great comeback there in the third quarter. Game 3, they tied. In game 4, they did very well in the third quarter. So I am kind of tempted by that third quarter money line, but I think I'm just going to go with my instinct here and take Edwards either 30 points or 35 points. I think Edwards is going to go off in this game. Denver can't guard him. The last time they were in this arena, you saw Edwards go for what, 40? 41? Mm-hmm. So yeah. I'll take the Edwards points here. I'm just trying to figure out what number I like more between the sorry, let me just pull this up really quickly. For the 30 points, Edwards is plus 115. 35 is plus 320. You know what? Let's live a little. Give me Edwards 35 plus at plus 320.
All right. Yeah, I like that Edwards one. I really think that he's gonna have a big game here tonight. All right, for my lock, I'm also gonna go with the Boston Celtics team total here, but I'm gonna go in the first half team total over. I do see a 62.5 right now, first half over. I'm gonna go with that for the Boston Celtics in the first half, and then for my dog, I'm gonna go with Devin Booker, steals plus blocks over 2.5 at plus 135. Talked about how he's really filled up the stat sheet over the last 3 games for the 3 out of the 4 games, I should say, for the Phoenix Suns. And again, you still have Westbrook out there. I know he's having a great series, but he's still prone to turning the ball over. And I think some of these other guys as well for the Clippers as well have been turning the ball over, and Devin Booker's have been able to block some shots as well. So at 2.5, where he's consistently done it throughout the 4 games, I'll take my chance, especially at a price of plus 135. So lock for me, Celtics team first half team total over 62.5, and then dog steals and blocks over 2.5 plus 135. And again, you can find those steals and blocks props combined at DraftKings. I think there's some other books that do offer it as well, but DraftKings is the main one where I get those lines from.
By the way, I see Nick asking for my opinion on Darvin Ham. I'm not a Darvin Ham guy. Once again, I think Ty Lue's better than him. Jason Kidd might be better than him. I think Jason Kidd probably is better than Darvin Ham. So yeah, Ham is in my bottom 10. I don't think he's a good coach at all.
I think you got to give Darvin Ham a pass right now because it is his first year as a head coach, and again, he's going to learn a lot of things.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
As a head coach.
I'm saying right now, if I had to grade him based on his first season, I've been more disappointed, if anything. But yeah, I think Kidd's probably a little bit better than him, but that's kind of the ballpark that I'm looking at. Ty Lue is clearly ahead of those guys. I just don't think that he's a top 5 coach in the league.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. 3 games on the schedule here tonight. 3 teams looking to advance to the next series. But we shall see if any one of these series are going to be extended here tonight. Last question before we get out of here, guys. 1-word answer. Of these 3 series, which one, if you had a gun to your head, which one do you think gets extended to a game 5? Delonte.
Oh, damn, good question. Fuck, that's a good question.
Is that part of your answer? Because it's a
Clippers.
Okay.
Scott,
You said Scott Foster is in Denver tonight, right?
he's in Denver, yeah.
Minnesota.
Okay. All right.
He's the extender. I can't go against the extender. Come on, man.
But he's been doing real well for home teams as well. But if I had to pick, it would be Minnesota as well. But yeah, we'll see.
I got a
It's
lot
not
of
many
faith in
great
Minnesota,
choices.
man.
Each spread
It's
is
not. That's why I
9.5
posed
or
the
higher.
question.
Like you got to pick something.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow in some form, Scott and Terrell will be back tomorrow to handicap the Wednesday games and then recap what we saw on Tuesday night. Make sure to follow Scott on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Follow Delonte on Twitter at XXLanteXX. Follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. If you haven't already, smash that like button for us. Really helps us grow the show on YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't already to the YouTube channel for the NBA pod, and then follow us on Twitter as well at SGPN NBA on Twitter. Good luck with your bets here tonight. Enjoy the games. Let's break these books off and let it ride.